Thank you, David Trolley. Thank you. The music ministry of David Trolley. There's nothing left but forgiveness. It comes down to that sometimes, doesn't it? Thank you, Bob, for doing the video recording, to Harry for doing the slides, to Sue Barton for the announcements, and Audrey. Always lovely to have you be the chaplain, Audrey. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And for everybody and for all your work that you do for this ministry, thank you for serving. Thank you. Well, forgiveness, we might as well get it over. Let's talk about it. It's one of the hardest things we have to do. We like to hold on to it. For some reason, we like to be resistant when it comes to forgiveness, and it just is such wonderful work. I don't know if you did some work during meditation, but if you did, you probably feel better. If you did some forgiveness work, it just opens your heart up. It makes you feel good. It's worthwhile doing, but it's hard work. And this Lenten season is the perfect time to be doing it. Because in Lent, what we're doing is giving up, aren't we? We're giving up thoughts that do not serve us well, thoughts that hold us back from being the fully present Christ consciousness that we are. And thoughts of unforgiveness are good thoughts to let go of, to clear your mind of, to not spend time on. And so this Lent, it's a good time to forgive and let those thoughts out. And it's funny, I ran into Reverend Kristen from Unity of Walnut Creek, and she said, "What are you talking about this week?" I said, "Forgiveness." And she said, "So am I." Oh, wow. And then Ken Daigle sent out at Unity of San Francisco, sent out his service topic, and it was, guess what? Forgiveness. So it must be up for us. And you know, those of you that are attending the Lenten meditation, you're going to hear this again, because what gave me the idea for this service was from the Renew and Release booklet and from the writing for today. On Sundays, the writing is longer than it is most days, and we've been releasing and renewing now for 20 some days, and it's been wonderful. And Reverend Beatrice Gallerano Bell writes this today in the Release and New booklet. This time of Lent is a time of reflection that invites us to go within ourselves, and there, in the silence of our soul, commune with the source of all good, the source of life, light, and love. That omnipotent source is always there, ready to transform all sorrow and suffering into pure love. We, and we know this, are divine in essence. We are pure spirit in all its potential. Therefore, in the face of life situations that cause suffering, grief, or guilt, let us allow spirit to do its healing work through us. Regardless of the situation that disturbs us or the person for whom we feel less than love, let us ask the Christ in us to forgive. Let us ask the Christ in us to forgive. If we can remain firm in this attitude, affirming with faith that it is the divinity in us that forgives, even in those moments when we are overrun by anger, frustration, sorrow, fear, or any emotion a memory evokes in us, we can be assured that forgiveness has already been made deep within our being, and that the peace it brings is reaching our soul. As John Duffy would say, wow. Take a breath on that. Take a breath on that. If we can be forgiveness, you see, for me, if I can go into my Christ, the Christ of my being, and forgive, I've let go of all those stories that I've created, all the resistance that I've created to not letting go. And in the center of my being, none of that's there. And I can do forgiveness work from there. I can forgive from the very soul of my being and have it come from there and come forward. Now, remember, Beatrice said, holding this resentment or anger or whatever towards people or other people or things. Well, I don't know if most of you know or not, but I've been having pain in my left shoulder for a year now. It's been driving me crazy. I thought it was muscle pain, and I changed my workout. I stopped doing upright rows and moved into doing something else for the chest that wouldn't put too much pressure on the shoulder, the muscles. And I went to see the doctor, and he wanted me to take 800 milligrams of ibuprofen 4 times a day, and I didn't want to do that. And I got a cortisone shot, and that helped for like a day and a half. And then I got another one and got an x-ray. And it turned, and you know, it turns out that it's osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis of the glenohumeral head socket, where the shoulder, the bone, big bone of the arm fits up into the shoulder. And of course, when that starts to happen, the muscles around it begin to strain because the shoulder's not working like it used to. And so you've got referred muscle pain. And you know, I have to tell you, those of you that are feeling similar aches and pains, it can be a 9 out of 10 at times, especially when I'm doing something, when I reach, you know, all of a sudden it catches you, or when it really hurts is when I'm driving the car. Well, let me tell you something. I got a resentment about this shoulder. It really ticked me off. I don't need to deal with this. And here I am, just a couple years past 50, and the shoulder is given out already. Come on, shoulder. Well, what's wrong with me? Why is my shoulder given out already? You know, I'm young yet. I'm a few years over 50, and what's going on, shoulder? I'm not happy about this, you know. But as usual, I was angry. I wasn't forgiving that shoulder, and I had to stop and think about everything that shoulder's done for me. You know, being a nurse for 45 years, I can't tell you how many patients that shoulder has lifted, how many patients that shoulder has moved. I can't tell you how many boxes I've carried, how many things I've picked up and moved into a different place. Why, this shoulder has even picked up my mother when she was sick and too sick to walk, and carried her to the car and put her in and taken her to the hospital. This shoulder's been good to me. And you know what? I love this shoulder. I forgive it. I can forgive it. I can forgive it for, well, actually, maybe I have to forgive myself for even having error thought and getting angry at my shoulder, because it's just the natural process of how wonderful to live to be 70 years old. I mean, how wonderful to be able to be 70 and be in this human experience and be standing erect and healthy and have a shoulder that still moves and can do things. You see, I had to stop being resistant. I had to stop being resistant to accepting the fact that as I get older, things are going to start to wear out. Things are going to start to wear down from all the good that they've done, from all the help that they've been, from all the wonderful experiences I've had during this human experience. So I had to take the time to do forgiveness work within, to let go of those feelings of worthlessness that why is my shoulder wearing out? Why? What good am I if I can't use my shoulder? And forgive myself, let that go, stop being resistant, And now the healing can begin. Now the healing can begin. And you know what? Since I've done this forgiveness work, I have to tell you the truth. It has not started to feel better, but I sure feel better about it. And that's made a huge difference. That has made a huge difference. We all know the rewards of doing forgiveness work. We talk about it here often enough. Why is it so hard for us to forgive? Could it possibly be that we're practicing resistance instead of non-resistance? Talking about non-resistance is always a favorite for me because I get to mention Reverend Imelda Octavia Shanklin. June Hebb, who's been in Unity for a while, will remember we've talked about Imelda several times. And it gives me a chance to bring up chapter 9 on non-resistance because Reverend Shanklin just puts it so well. And at one point she says this: mental resistance is the act of receiving hurt. Let me say that again. Mental resistance is the act of receiving hurt. Mental non-resistance is the act of refusing hurt. You see, when we resist, we're the one that hurts. Now, I'm not talking about the resistance, not doing something because you've used the faculty of understanding and wisdom. It's not resistance. But when you know you need to forgive, when you know you need to move on and you don't, that's resistance. And when we don't do our forgiveness work, when we resist, who's receiving that hurt? We are. Imelda Octavia Shanklin says non-resistance is not mere tolerance. She tells us that it includes none of the assumed superiorities of the personal mind, none of the assumed superiorities of the personal mind, of the human mind, of the animal mind, of the stories that we tell ourselves, of the grandiosities that we tell ourselves. Non-resistance is not a part of that. It is a positiveness that offers no opposition, that does not take account of opposition. That's non-resistance. Being non-resistant, you do not feel yourself of higher grade than others. You do not consider differences. You consider likenesses. You have no enemies because you are not an enemy. You do not war with nature, and nature is peaceful towards you. The energies of your body are adjusted to opportunities. Oh, I love the way Imelda writes this now. She says, the energy of your bodies are adjusted to opportunities. You feel the glow of heaven's lasting summer within the frost that tingles your flesh, the coolness of mountain airs within the sirocco's breath. Can you feel that? That's non-resistance. She says, when you're in non-resistance, you can run without being hurried. You can perspire without being hot. You rest not because you are exhausted, but because you would have released in you the reservoirs of that strength to which non-resistance holds the key. She says, you can surrender and be the victor. You can surrender and be the victor. Robert Enright writes a book called 8 Keys to Forgiveness. And he goes deeply into forgiveness in that book, and he highlights several steps. As a matter of fact, 8 steps or 8 keys to work on forgiveness. And I want to talk with you about a couple of them this morning. Perhaps you might want to incorporate them into your practice or into your forgiveness work. And Robert says that sometimes the hurt is very deep, such as when a spouse or a parent betrays our trust, or when we are victims of crime, or when we've been harshly bullied. anyone who has suffered a grievous hurt knows that when our inner world is badly disrupted, it's difficult to concentrate on anything other than our turmoil or our pain. When we hold on to hurt, we are emotionally and cognitively hobbled, he says, and our relationships suffer. Our relationships suffer. That's so true. I mean, when we haven't done our forgiveness work, when we're in the midst of non-forgiving, our relationships suffer. We're cognitively and emotionally hobbled. And Robert Enright says that forgiveness is strong medicine for this. When life hits us hard, there is nothing as effective as forgiveness for healing deep wounds. And one way that you can do this is to know what forgiveness is and why it matters. Mr. Enright tells us that forgiveness is about goodness, about extending mercy to those who've harmed us, even if they don't deserve it. Even if they don't deserve it. It is not about finding excuses for the offending person's behavior or pretending it didn't happen. Nor is there a quick formula you can follow. Forgiveness is a process with many steps and often proceeds in a non-linear fashion. More often than not, the process of forgiveness is quite non-linear. And very often, almost always, you can count on the process being individual. Every person's, just like grief is an individual process, forgiveness is an individual process. So if you think you don't forgive the right way, well, it's an individual process, and forgive yourself for thinking that way and do your forgiveness work. Forgiveness work is well worth the effort. Working on forgiveness can help us increase our self-esteem and give us a sense of inner strength and safety. It can reverse the lies, the stories that we often tell ourselves when someone has hurt us deeply. Lies like, it can tell us lies like, I am defeated or I'm not worthy. Forgiveness can heal us and allow us to move on in life with meaning and purpose. Forgiveness matters, and we will be its primary beneficiary. Enright says that studies have shown that forgiving others produces strong psychological benefits for the one who forgives. It has been shown to decrease depression, anxiety, unhealthy anger, and the symptoms of PTSD. But we don't just forgive to help ourselves. Forgiveness can lead to psychological healing. Yes, but in its essence, it's not something about you or done for you, because you recognize over time that it is the best response to the situation. Think back about that. You do recognize that forgiveness was the best response to the situation. Matter of fact, I always find myself saying, what took me so long? Why did I have to stay resistant so long? It feels so good. I could have felt this good longer ago if I'd just forgiven. So know what forgiveness is and what forgiveness is about and why we even practice it. And then Enright says that we can become, and I love this, forgivingly fit. Don't you want to become forgivingly fit? I want to become forgivingly fit. I've been working on becoming forgivingly fit. To practice forgiveness, it helps if you have worked on positively changing your inner world by learning to be what I call, or what Enright calls, forgivingly fit. Just as you would start slowly with a new physical exercise routine, it helps if you build up your forgiving heart muscle slowly, incorporating regular workouts into your everyday life. Now, that's so important for becoming forgivingly fit, to take your time to not, I don't want to have anybody leave this Sunday service and say, well, I'm going to spend the next 24 hours forgiving everything that I've held on to all this time. Let's take our time. Let's really do our work. Let's really incorporate it into our hearts. Let's do our forgiveness work from within. Let's do it one at a time. Let's take our time. It's nothing we need to hurry about. You can start becoming more fit by making a commitment to do no harm. In other words, making a conscious effort not to talk disparagingly about those who've hurt you. You don't have to say good things. But if you refrain from talking negatively, it will feed the, it will feed the more forgiving side of your mind and heart. If you stop being negative, stay positive. Stop talking disparagingly about those who you feel have hurt you. Just don't talk about them. You can also make a practice of recognizing that every person is unique, special, and irreplaceable. Remember, we've been talking about this for the last couple Sundays. I'm me, I'm having a human experience, and you're having one too, and you're you. We're both trying to get through this human experience. You may come to this making this recognition of irreplaceability, that each person is special. You may come to this through religious beliefs or a humanist philosophy, or even through your belief in evolution. It's important to cultivate this mindset of valuing our common humanity so that it becomes harder to discount someone who has harmed you as unworthy. That's what we do. We discount them as unworthy. And we need to not. They're valuable. They're having a human experience just like we are. We can show love in small ways, in everyday encounters, like smiling at a harried grocery cashier, or taking time to listen to a child. Giving love when it's unnecessary helps to build the love muscle. Making it easier to show compassion toward everyone. If you practice small acts of forgiving and mercy, extending care when someone harms you in everyday life, this will also help you to become forgivingly fit. Perhaps, now I'm not suggesting this, but perhaps you can refrain from honking when someone cuts you off in traffic, just perhaps. Or hold your tongue when your spouse snaps at you and extend a hug instead. Ah, I like that one. Perhaps. So we work on becoming forgivingly fit. We work on it, we practice it just like everything else, and we don't forget to address our inner pain. It's important to figure out who's hurt you and how. It may seem obvious, but every action that causes suffering, that causes you, excuse me, but not every action that causes you suffering is unjust. For example, you don't need to forgive your child or your spouse for being imperfect, even if their imperfections are inconvenient for you. To become clearer, you can look carefully at the people in your life, your parents, your siblings, peers, your spouse, coworkers, children, and yourself, and rate how much they or you hurt you. Perhaps they have exercised power over you or withheld love, or maybe they have physically harmed you. These hurts, all these hurts, have contributed to your inner pain, and they need to be acknowledged. Doing this will give you an idea of who needs forgiveness in your life and provide a place to start. And then you can start slow and easy and do the work. You know that there are many forms of emotional pain, and that includes anxiety and depression, unhealthy anger, lack of trust, self-loathing, self-esteem, or an overall negative attitude, and a lack of confidence in one's ability to change. A lack of confidence in one's ability to change. So we need to address that inner pain, and they can all be addressed by forgiveness. Some of them may be too big to hit right on. Go slow, take your time, but just by acknowledging, by addressing that inner pain, you've begun your forgiveness work. And of course, don't forget to forgive yourself. Most of us are harder on ourselves than we are on others, and we struggle to love ourselves. And not feeling lovable because of actions that I've taken, I may need to work on self-forgiveness, and I do. And I may need to offer to myself what I offer to others who have hurt me. A sense of inherent worth, a sense of worth despite the actions that I may need to forgive myself for, and that I'm still working on. In self-forgiveness, I honor myself as a person, even if I am imperfect. If I've broken my personal standards in a serious way, there is a danger of sliding into self-loathing. When this happens, you may not take good care of yourself. You might overeat or oversleep or start smoking or engage in other forms of self-punishment. You may need to recognize this and move towards self-compassion to soften your heart towards yourself. And even if you've even been able to forgive yourself, you'll still need to engage in forgiveness from others whom you've harmed, and right the wrongs as best you can. And of course, it's important to be prepared for the possibility that the other person may not be ready to forgive you, and to practice patience and humility. But a sincere apology, free of conditions and expectations, will go a long way toward receiving forgiveness in the end. But a sincere apology, free of conditions and expectations, free of expectations, will go a long way toward your receiving forgiveness in the end. And if we can put all of these into practice, or at least one or two of them, we begin developing a forgiving heart. And we begin developing that forgiving heart, and we begin calling on that forgiving heart more frequently. We begin using that forgiving heart more frequently. The practicing of non-resistance to let go and to forgive becomes easier. We know that when we are practicing resistance, we're the only one it hurts. So I call on you to bring forth whatever it was you were letting go in meditation, and let it go completely. Go within deeply this week and forgive. And don't forget to forgive yourself. Thank you. Have a very nice week, and God bless.